and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
You're listening to Nosebleed Radio. Here's your host, Tucker Franklin.
How's it going? And good eye, Mike, to our listeners down under. This is Nosebleed Radio, episode 5. I'm here with the boys, Kieran Brennan.
Howdy.
Toby Todd.
What's up?
And Shane Miller.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Roll Hawks.
It's episode 5, so we thought about talking about some famous number 5s in sports. Shane, do you want to go ahead and kick us off to see who you're thinking about?
My number 1, Joe DiMaggio. Great baseball player. My number 2, I'm going to go with Dan Bailey, the most consistent kicker in the NFL. Also my favorite current kicker. He kicks for the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm obviously going to go with everybody's favorite choice, Pat White, when he was at West Virginia. And then I'll follow that up with Albert Pujols. You may have heard of him. He used to be pretty good at baseball.
I'm going with Kevin Garnett, the catalyst of the Celtics' 2008 NBA championship team, and the most intense basketball player maybe to ever play.
Anything is possible!
That's a great line. That's one of his famous quotes.
Yeah, I think it's the only quote that anybody will remember him for, absolutely.
Do you have another one? Just one?
No, it's just that. You know, Kevin Garnett, he's kind of a magician. I kind of went two ways. He's my favorite number 5 magician with his hoodie stain on the back of his head.
That's true.
Yes, he does it all, so I only need one guy for this.
Wait, didn't you say he doesn't tape it, though, right? We had this argument the other day.
He doesn't tape it. He shaves his head bald. He shaves back against the grain. So instead of shaving from the front of his head, he shaves from the back, and it creates like what I would consider a sandpaper-like substance, and the hoodie just sticks to the back of it magically.
Is that real or...
Yes, no, he said that on an episode of Inside the NBA. Yeah, they asked about it because it kind of went viral, his whole hoodie fiasco. He's out here dancing around. The hoodie's barely clinging to whatever he has on his head.
So I'm going to go, for my number 5, I'm going to go with 2 baseball players. I'm going to go with my first one, probably the greatest third baseman of all time, George Brett. You know, he's the only guy to pick up a batting title in 3 different decades. Very impressive.
And the 85 World Series champion, right, Kieran?
He's also got his own barbecue line right now.
I wasn't alive then, so I don't recognize anything before I was alive.
That's fair. And number 2, Johnny Bench, great catcher. I mean, I'm a big Reds guy. I'll say it because I like Pete Rose. Kieran's shaking his head over here, but I like Pete Rose.
Do you like Pete Rose just because you like to gamble?
Okay. Now, I do. And it's college basketball time, too. So this is like prime time. If you're going to make some money, now's the time because these upsets are everywhere.
Or lose a lot of money.
No, don't say that. That's bad juju. I don't want any bad juju. Johnny Bench still my second number 5. We're going to try to do this every episode. I think it's kind of a cool way to start off. Last week we talked about the Rugby Sevens tournament in Las Vegas, and Shane said the U.S. was going to suck, and they did not.
I'm very sorry, everybody. I have never been more happy to be so wrong, though, because going into this tournament, nothing looked good for us. Like, we were missing key players, like I talked about with Madison Hughes and then his backup, Stephen Thomason. We were 6th going into the tournament, in way behind. I think Argentina was we were 7th going into this, behind England and Argentina. We've now jumped England to be 6th, right behind Argentina now. But we didn't look good. We didn't look like we were playing well together. We didn't look like we had the greatest chemistry. Carlin Isles, usually one of our star standout players, hasn't been playing much time at all because of injuries, and he just hasn't been performing well. I was so wrong though going into this tournament. We looked incredible. We looked like we wanted a championship. I think the team going into this heard everyone saying that U.S. was going to suck and do bad, and they were like, screw it, not on our home soil. We're not doing this in Vegas. We're going out. We're taking a damn championship, and that's exactly what they did. They played just lights out rugby. They had some pretty solid wins. They started out winning over Samoa, which is kind of Samoa's a good team. They're an island team, so they grew up playing rugby, but they're not really big enough or a powerhouse or anything. We ended up beating Australia, though, which was a big win for us, and we beat them pretty bad, 28-7, which Australia's a rugby powerhouse, so to win by that much was pretty good. I think motivator going into the second day of pool play. When we played Spain, a little bit of a fallback there. We beat Spain 28-17. But then we really came back against England, another powerhouse, beat them 17-12, and eventually, against Fiji, we beat them 19-7. Which Fiji, like I said last time, gold medal winners from the Olympics, same team we're playing against right now. Jerry Tuai, who's still the leading try scorer in all of Rugby Sevens, we shut him down. He did not do anything against us. They had one try. I think he was the one who scored it. But still, to hold someone like that who leads the entire world in tries scored to one try in a match, that's incredible. Danny Barrett played like an absolute tank. He was leaving trails of carnage behind him like none other. And the best part about this is after we won, so I don't know if you guys know who Danny Barrett looks like. He's like huge dude, massive beard, caveman looking dude. He's got this WWE USA Championship belt on, just celebrating with everyone, drinking beers and stuff, taking pictures. Perry Baker, so damn good. That guy, like I told you, he's fast. He had a full pitch try. So from one try zone to the other try zone, he ran around 3 guys in the corner and made them look stupid. We'll have to post a video or something because that was ridiculous. Yeah. But I was so excited watching this tournament. I couldn't believe how happy he was. I want to say they won because they knew it was my birthday. So
yeah,
I'm taking credit for that.
Yeah, on Saturday we watched that championship game, and I was actually amazed on how fast those games actually go.
Oh, yeah, only 14 minutes total with like a 5-minute halftime. So
yeah, I was shocked. We got a question from Michael in Savannah. He said after the Rugby Sevens tournament in Las Vegas, fans rushed the field to celebrate with the USA team. Do you think more professional sports should allow fans back on the field to celebrate with the players?
Oh, absolutely. I love that idea.
It was a great
fun.
scene.
Yeah. Well, especially in rugby, I think it's such like an emotional sport because, like you said, the games are so fast. Anything can happen within those 14 minutes. And these guys, like, their families at the games. Rugby right now isn't the most popular sport where you have people flying in from all over the country to come watch them. You know, these people here love rugby. They love the team, and they want to be with them when they win their second ever Seven Series championship, especially winning on home soil. Like that was a great moment for them. I think all sports should incorporate that. I like the idea. I'd like to go out and hug Dak Prescott after a win or something. That'd be cool.
On the subject, I do like the idea of fans maybe coming on the field after games to celebrate. At the same time, you've got those bad egg fans. Imagine after the NFC Championship, the Eagles fans are allowed on the field against the Vikings. Who knows what happens after that? You don't have the calm, collective Vikings walking, blazing their trail of defeat back to the locker room to wallow in sorrow because you've got Eagles fans out here blocking the exits, ready to throw batteries at them or boo them like they're Santa or something, so...
Yeah, that is a good point. Rugby is a sport of like respect. There's a lot of respect for both teams on both sides. So I think that might just be a rugby thing. I think Tony makes a good point. Yeah. We shouldn't let Eagles fans on the field at any point.
Just don't let them anywhere. No Eagles fans anywhere.
Got Selection Sunday coming up, and there's a new way they're doing Selection Sunday, and I haven't heard a positive response yet to it. What they're doing is they're releasing all 68 teams at once, so they're basically shoving the bracket in your face and saying, here's the bracket. They're not releasing it region by region. So Toby, here's our resident Joe Lenardi. We tweeted out and he blogged about all the conference previews that we had. So Toby, what do you think about this whole setup?
Initially, I really didn't like it, because... that's always one of the most fun things about Selection Sunday.
Right. It
takes the full hour. You're a little bit frustrated, all the commercial breaks. It takes a full hour. They've got the guys breaking down each region as they come out. Everybody's shocked by what's happening. Now they're kind of just like pushing all of this in front. And now as an Oklahoma State fan, I only have to wait 10 minutes to be disappointed in the committee for not putting us in. So
that's true.
I guess for some teams, like if you're going to be there, you're just a fan, seeing who you're going to play. You're a Kansas fan. You're like, okay, I want to play LIU Brooklyn in this 1 versus 16. I just want to see like who we have next. I think that'll be fine for those fans. But those fans that are really on the bubble, or those fans that are like the 7 to 10 seeds, the fans that haven't gotten to experience the NCAA tournament before, seeing that pop up, just seeing your name come across the screen individually one at a time like they used to do it, just region by region, and seeing the eruptions from the players and seeing where they're all slotted. I think that was one of the great things about Selection Sunday. I don't know how they're going to have enough cameras to cut to all those small schools celebrating in those obscure places like we have. So I think some of the magic of Selection Sunday will sort of be lost a little bit when they go to this format.
And I think that's one of the coolest things about Selection Sundays when you go to the schools that are on the bubble and you see them get in and they're in their arena and their whole arena is going crazy.
Right, yeah.
We're going to stick with the college basketball theme. We took on the Big 12 tournament yesterday, as in Wednesday. We record this on a Thursday, so it kind of gets harder. We get mixed up with our days.
It's like time travel.
It is like time travel. So like when you're listening to this, it's Friday, but we're actually talking on Thursday. Magica Podcasts. We saw Toby's Oklahoma State take down Oklahoma, and we saw a very good Texas-Iowa State game where Texas was able to move on. Fellas, what did you think about that?
I go every year. The tournament's held in Kansas City. I try to make an attempt to go to as many games as I can in the Big 12 tournament. And yesterday, I mean, that was great. I had actually never seen a Bedlam game in person before until yesterday's game. And so to see us come out on top, see us play as well as we did, that was, I mean, just really special for me to get to see that Bedlam game. And then, like you said, the game after it, fantastic basketball game. Anybody who's a fan of basketball and was there for that game stayed up till 10:30 at night to watch two teams who we have relatively no ties to, you know, as a group, or anybody here, anybody who went to the game with us had no ties to, honestly, but we saw a great game. I think we had a really, really good time, and I wanted to know what you guys thought about it because I think this was Shane's first time, you guys second, so.
Yeah, this was my first time in the Big 12 tournament, and I obviously loved watching Oklahoma go down. I hate Oklahoma, always have since Nebraska was in the Big 12. Still feels like it's a bit of a rivalry there, even though we don't play anymore. Loved the Iowa State game. Like Toby said, I didn't really have a tie to either team, but like watching Iowa State play with only 7 players, 2 guys on the bench, 5 guys on the court, almost beat Texas, who Texas is they were a solid team. I know they were missing a guy, but still, like, they were a very well-coached team. So that was a really fun game to watch. The only thing I really didn't like about the tournament was how expensive beer was. Just turned 21. Super excited to be able to drink in public, you know. So I went up to the beer counter, and they told me $11 for a beer. Ridiculous. How can people get away with charging $11 for, like, a 16-ounce glass of beer? I still bought it. Like, I'm not going to buy it. But I was upset about that. That was the only gripe I have with the tournament.
You're not paying for the beer. You're paying for the atmosphere.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm also paying for the beer. Like,
and you also paid for the atmosphere. So
we already paid for the atmosphere with the ticket.
You paid for the atmosphere with the ticket, and you're paying for even more atmosphere with the beer. So it's just like all the atmosphere. You can get it all.
Those of us that got in.
Those of us that got in, RIP to those who didn't. This was actually my first tournament going to, and I was so happy. I don't think any of us on this podcast really like Oklahoma, do we? Nope, we all don't like him. And I'm glad because Trae Young, he's a good basketball player, I guess, but he turns the ball over so much, like an unreal amount of turnovers. And so I was happy to watch them lose. My boy Cam McGriff tore it up. I'm a big Cam McGriff fan. Number one, we are a pro Cam McGriff podcast. I'm declaring that now. I wanted Texas to win, but I really was just kind of disappointed to see Mo Bamba not play. But like Shane said, that team is very well coached. Shaka Smart is a great coach. I'm a big Shaka Smart fan. I'm just a big fan of a lot of people. I thought the games were great. The Iowa State game came down to the wire, and I can't wait to go next year.
And it is interesting, especially come conference tournament time, because we got to see the bottom 4 seeds in the Big 12. Like Tucker told you, it comes out on a Thursday. The games the following day were tremendous today in the Big 12 tournament. And I think just that atmosphere in general, you only got a slice of it last night. Anybody who went last night, they just got a slice of that. You didn't get to see Kansas play. You didn't get to see Kansas State play in the Sprint Center. Iowa State always packs the house. Great crowd for the Cyclones every time they go. But it was just scratching the surface of the Big 12 tournament. And I'm really glad that we all got to go down to that and share that experience because it's one of my favorites personally as a basketball fan and just as a sports fan in general.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I want to make sure next year we definitely got to go to the first, the opening day of the Big 12 tournament again next year. But I want to make sure we also go, even if it's the next day, to a Kansas game because when we were outside before the Iowa State game and everything, we were up in the kind of by the bar area in the Power of Light district, and they were having an Iowa State pep rally. And even though it wasn't a home team, it wasn't a Missouri team, they still had a bunch of people down there with the band and the cheerleaders and dancers and everything. Everyone was having a good time, and I can't imagine how awesome that would be for KU or K-State or something there's a little bit closer, so a lot more fans are going to come, especially KU. Kansas City is a big KU town, usually KU and Mizzou. So I just think that would be an incredible atmosphere to be around.
Iowa State fans travel very well, probably because there's nothing else to do in Iowa. I don't like Kansas, but one of the things on my bucket list is probably to watch a game in Fall Gallon Fieldhouse, and I feel like going to a game at the Sprint Center in which Kansas is playing, I feel like that'd be the next best thing because it would be it's like a second home court.
It's wild down there. So we were actually, what Shane was alluding to, we were standing on top right outside McFadden's looking down at the concourse, everything outside. Kansas played today. They played at 2 o'clock, played Oklahoma State. They won that game. They fill that. Every time they play, that entire area is filled. It's red and blue. It's just a sea of red and blue. You can't walk through it. Anybody who didn't get a ticket, they get drunk outside. They watch the games up on the big screen. You can hear roars, actually, when you're walking through the concourse during a Kansas game. You're walking through the concourse on first level. You can hear the roars from fans outside watching the game at the bars in that area. And it's just electric, and I'm really excited about today's game when Kansas State plays Kansas, because the Sprint Center, if that's as good as that game that they played in Manhattan, the Sprint Center might come down tomorrow with all those fans in it. So,
but I do have a question though before we move on.
Yes, sir.
One thing that really bothers me about all these conferences is their names aren't right. The Big Ten has 14 teams. The Big 12 has 10 teams. So are they going to change these names ever, you think?
Right. I think that's the one area where the Pac-12 is actually proven to be the Conference of Champions, as Bill Walton says, because they were Pac-10, got 2 new teams. They changed the name to the Pac-12, which is fantastic. The Big Ten has 12 teams. You're like, okay, we can't name both of us the Big 12. But the Big Ten has 14 teams now, and it's just so confusing, like you said. It's absurd, honestly. And they had 11 before they actually got the new teams. Right. So that's just confusing all the way around.
I think we should just do away with numbers completely. The Big 12 used to be the Big 8. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but Nebraska history, we used to be the Big 8 champions. So how many times are you going to change it? Are you going to change it every time you add new teams to the conference or something? In my opinion, I think we should go to just sweet names like Outlaw Conference, or Thrasher and Smasher, just sweet, aggressive sounding names. I think would be cool instead of numbers. Then you don't have to change it every time you add new teams to the conference.
Right. Michigan are a bunch of bad teams. They could change the Big Ten name to that.
No.
One name that goes along with sweet, like Thrasher and Slasher, the SEC. That's a pretty dope name, and they haven't had to change it, and they've added all the teams they want. So, thanks, Shane. That's a great point. SEC is a pretty dope name.
I think that's the way that these conferences on the coastline are better. Like, you have the Big East, the ACC, the SEC. You can't forget about the Big Sky, the Big South Ohio Valley Conference, the MAC. All those teams don't have to change. I just don't think you should have numbers in them.
New name for the Big Ten, the Big Prairie. I like that. I think Big Prairie sounds cool.
I think the Big 12, the Big 10, they probably need to change their name. But the Big 12 could just add 2 more teams. And they tried to add a couple more teams last year with Houston and somebody else. And they just, I think, wasn't it Texas? Texas just said, nah, we don't want this anymore. So, Big 10, change your name. Big 12, add some teams.
No one wants to be in a conference with Texas. That's why Nebraska left. Texas sucks.
Yeah, Nebraska never wanted to be in the Big 12. As soon as Texas came in, Nebraska was always trying to wait to get out.
Right. It's only a matter of time before they change the Big 12 conference to the Longhorn Conference. And pretty soon everybody will just be playing in the Longhorn Conference. All games on the Longhorn Network. Texas, get it right. Stop messing around. Add 2 more teams. Houston, Cincinnati, boom, right there. 2 more teams, just add them.
The reason Nebraska didn't like Texas joining the Big 12 was because Texas was the only team, or the only school in the Big 12. They're the only ones that wanted to lower the GPA requirements to be a student athlete in the Big 12. Every other school was on board for keeping it higher. Texas came in, they had to lower it for Texas, and no one else was on board for that. So that's the reason I hate Texas. That's not the only reason, but I do hate Texas for a lot of reasons.
Plus, Texas sucks because their AD talked really mean about Mizzou, and Tom Herman is a big old jerk, and he mocked our boy Drew Lock. So we don't like Texas anymore. I'm declaring this an anti-Texas
podcast. I'm in.
Yeah, I do want to get Drew Lock on this podcast too. So, Drew Lock, if you're listening out there, hit us up. We're going to go ahead and move on to some NFL news. The franchise tag deadline was a few days ago. You had the Dallas Cowboys place a franchise tag on DeMarcus Lawrence. Steelers placing the tag on Le'Veon Bell for the 2nd straight year. Probably not too happy with that. The Chicago Bears placed a transition tag on Kyle Fuller. So, fellas, what do you guys think about these franchise tags?
Speaking from a Dallas perspective, I think the Dallas Cowboys franchise tagging DeMarcus Lawrence, it's a good move for us. I think it's cool. We're going to keep him for cheaper now than he wanted, so it kind of sucks for DeMarcus Lawrence, but we're still going to keep him. I think this means, though, that we're going to pay Dez Bryant the money he wants, and we're going to keep him and keep a really strong receiving core. We're going to have Dak back next year. We're going to have Zeke back for most likely 16 games next year. I think we're a playoff team now because we have all of our pass rushers, and we have our receiving core, a running back, and a good quarterback. So I think it's going to be a really good year for Dallas. I don't think we're going to go to the NFC Championship or anything like that yet. I'm not going to make that bold of a prediction, but we will go to the playoffs. We will have at least 10 wins this season. I'm guaranteeing that right now.
Along with franchise tags, the Jags also did not tag Allen Robinson, which was a big deal at the time.
One thing, you mentioned it earlier, Le'Veon Bell getting franchise tag. This really excites me as a Patriots fan because Le'Veon Bell has stated in the past he does not want to play under that franchise tag. Steelers tagged him. Is this the 2nd time they've tagged him now?
2nd straight year, yeah.
2nd straight year they've tagged him, and he is not happy. I heard he's been threatening he'll hold out. He won't play games under the franchise tag. He's not going to play with the team. You're right, said he'd retire, which, as a Patriots fan, go for it. I'm all for that.
I'm cool for
You're
that,
retiring, too. Yes, absolutely. But if not, I think I know a team that, we kind of get guys who have been abandoned by their team, go up to New England, maybe revisit James Harrison, team up. I'm just saying, Le'Veon.
But
just
also,
saying.
It would be crazy if he retires because there's been no running backs to ever retire in their prime before.
DeMarco Murray was not re-picked back up by the Titans.
That's true.
Is that a running back potentially the Colts look at in free agency?
I hope not, because I am not a DeMarco Murray fan. I don't think he's that good. I think last year he had a foot injury and he played very poorly, but he's good when he's on a team with a good offensive line, which the Colts do not have. If you look, when he was with the Cowboys, outstanding running back. Then he went to the Eagles under Chip Kelly, not very good. Then he went to Tennessee, who has the biggest offensive line, and then he thrived. If you paid attention the past couple seasons, it kind of looked as though the Titans were kind of trying to transition Derrick Henry into that, because in Derrick Henry's first year together, it was kind of like DeMarco Murray got 75%, but Derrick Henry got 25%, and then it was more like 50-50. So the only step is them to just fully commit to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of DeMarco Murray either. I mean, obviously I was when he was with Dallas, but like you said, he needs a great line to run behind, otherwise he can't make moves. He's also a headache in the locker room from what everyone talks about. That was the biggest reason the Cowboys let him go, was because they couldn't deal with him in the locker room, and they knew he's only getting this far because of our linemen. We can find another running back that can run behind our line.
I'm happy he's a free agent, not because I want the Colts to sign him, but because he has the possibility of leaving that division.
And the Colts also talked about picking up Dion Lewis, so another pitch to DeMarco Murray. You're not going to be a head case in New England's locker room, not with Bill around. Just saying, if Le'Veon doesn't come, DeMarco Murray, we're open.
Toby's out here trying to get running backs to New England. We're going to go ahead and get into our interview with Gannon Cornley, wide receiver at Missouri Western State University. We just talk a little bit of sports with him. So here he is. Here's Gannon Cornley. We're here with our guest, Gannon Cornley. We're going to talk a little bit of the Combine, little Michael Porter Jr. return, and we're going to end up with some rapid-fire questions. Gannon, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Doing pretty well. Let's go ahead and get it kicked off. What were your thoughts on the NFL Combine?
I was really cool to see one of my good friends, actually Michael Gallup. He played with me at Butler Community College. We played together, and he's coming out of Colorado State. I knew he would do well. He didn't run as fast as I thought he would have with his 4.51, but me and a couple of my other friends kind of got onto him a little bit about how he can run faster, and then he turned around on his pro day, ran a 4.44 like it was nothing. So. But yeah, I was really excited to see him. Byron Pringle, kind of a local guy at K-State, which was pretty nice. And there was just a couple guys. I also played with him also as well at Butler. And then, of course, I was excited to see the quarterbacks, just with Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield, a couple of other guys. I thought most quarterbacks did well just in general. And that was pretty cool to see them kind of get out there. A lot of them have insane arms. They were throwing the ball like 70 yards like it was nothing.
Who do you think did the best quarterback-wise? Who impressed you the most as a quarterback?
In my opinion, I think Josh Allen did. I think Josh Allen really impressed a lot of the scouts there, and I think he kind of showed that he deserves to be number one, and I honestly can't disagree with it.
Yeah, I think it's cool. He's a JUCO guy, He sent his film to a bunch of different schools. Wyoming was the only one that gave him a chance. It's cool to see him come out and kind of declare himself one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft. It's cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the thing that Josh Allen really impressed you the most with?
His arm strength for sure. That was pretty impressive how he kind of was throwing the ball around, slinging. I think he threw it like 70, 80 yards like it was nothing at one point. And then he had some, from what I saw, he was throwing some real accurate balls. He was a lot faster than I thought, too. I didn't think he could run as fast as he did. I think he ran like a 4.7 something, I believe. I didn't know he was actually that fast. I thought he was more of just not necessarily a pocket passer, but more just stay in the pocket, kind of throw it type of guy. But he had some wheels, so that was pretty cool to see.
Did you see the video of him running next to Mo Shroot?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who wants a quarterback that runs like that, though.
No arms in his run.
Yeah, he looked funny. If he had some type of form, he probably would have ran faster.
Oh, yeah. Goofy-looking dude.
Well, speaking of pretty fast runners, what'd you think about Saquon Barkley's combine?
I think it was very impressive. I went into it thinking he was the best back going into the draft. He was one of my favorite players coming into it. I thought he did really well, and he showed why he deserved to be the number one running back taken, or should be the number one running back taken.
So if you're the Browns, you take Saquon Barkley, or you take a quarterback first?
in my opinion, I think they take Barkley first, get your playmaker, go get him first, because clearly what it hasn't worked for you in the past, taking the quarterback that you believe is the guy. I mean, how many the guys have the Browns had? My goodness. Every year this is our man, this is our guy, this is our guy, and then you end up with a 1-15 or 0-16 record. So get your running back first, get that guy, and then go get your quarterback. I mean, you get picks, I believe, they get 1 and 3, right?
1 and 4, yeah.
4.
1 and 4. So I mean, you're gonna get one of the top quarterbacks in the draft anyway. And I think they're all, and none of them have really set themselves apart. I think Josh Allen's the best, but it's not like he's just bar none. You know, he's not like an Andrew Luck and then everybody else in his draft.
No,
so it's kind of like get your running back, then get your quarterback later. Get the guy that is going to be the face of your franchise, because basically the face of your franchise has been Josh Gordon, and he hasn't played since 2013 before this year. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. I've been saying that they need a guy like Saquon Barkley. There's 4, like you said, 4 top quarterbacks right now, but there's only one Saquon Barkley. And you need a great running back to set up your pass game anyway. So I think you take Saquon 1, and then take probably Baker Mayfield, I'm assuming, at number 4. The way he's kind of looking out for him.
Yeah, that would be, if Baker Mayfield's their guy, then I say go with him. Go with the quarterback you think is going to take you there, but you got to get your playmaker first.
Yeah, one of the cool stories coming out of the Combine was Shaquem Griffin. You know, that dude's unreal. Got one hand, and he's just lighting everything up. What'd you think about him?
That blew my mind, honestly. I couldn't believe how well he did, how strong he was, how fast he ran. I mean, that guy is just an absolute playmaker, and just all of the things that he probably has to go through just with one arm, and the fact that he could still just come out there and basically outshine every linebacker out there was extremely impressive.
Did you guys see how well he was catching the ball too?
Mm-hmm.
Even when he had one arm, he was so creative about the ways he would catch the ball with like his forearms or with his elbow and stuff too. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, he was moving too. You could see it just based on the tape. That guy was flying, and he's an absolute animal. I really hope he gets drafted high and it works out for him, because he seems like a humble guy. He seems like he goes out there, does his best every play, despite, you know, he could have every excuse in the world, and he seems like he just kind of goes out there and does his thing. And I love the guy. He's good.
I really think the only knock on him is that he doesn't have 10 fingers.
Yeah, that's his only thing, because he seems like he's a full package other than that.
I went and digged up a tweet from myself. I tweeted it January 24th. When the Browns draft Saquon at 1 and Fitzpatrick at 4, please credit at the real Tucker F. So I'm just saying, I've been calling it since January, man. And that's gonna happen.
Wow, that would be something. That would be real interesting.
We're gonna go ahead and talk some Michael Porter Jr. I hear that you're a big Mizzou fan, and so am I here. So, what'd you think about the game today?
Kind of heartbreaking a little bit. They started off so well. All the hype, they were all happy. Started off with, I think it was like 10-0 to begin the game. I'm like, oh, they're about to blow Georgia out the gym. Then all of a sudden, I think we forgot how to shoot. Michael Porter included. And so, I mean, I didn't expect him just to come out the gate and just drop, you know, a 20 or a 30 ball. It would have been nice to see him shoot a little better, but I still think that he's fine. I don't think any less of him. I think that he kind of needed one game to get the rust knocked off, and I think if Mizzou would have beaten Georgia today, that he would have been back to his old self against Kentucky tomorrow. He just kind of needed one game to kind of get his misses out the way and kind of get back into the flow of it. But they just unfortunately couldn't get the win in the end. I
really wish Michael Porter Jr. could have another game before the tournament to play.
I do too.
And I think that's the worst part about this is after I saw that shot from Cassius. Great look, by the way. Great play that Konzo drew up. I can't be upset about that. And his shots just weren't falling today.
Yeah, it just wasn't there. The team itself wasn't there. I mean, Mizzou was shooting like 21%, I think, right before half. It was bad. Nothing was falling. Every other time, it felt like there was a foul being called. So they just never got into a rhythm offensively, and it just wasn't good today.
Well, you mentioned Michael Porter Jr. not having an extra game to get prepared for the tournament. Where do you think that leaves Mizzou in hopes of the NCAA tournament, making a deep run? Where do you think that leaves them now?
Well, I think that I still see them in that probably 8, 9, 10 range. So they're looking to hopefully get a game, win a game, and then possibly be able to look for an upset. It just kind of sucks now that they kind of have to play the waiting game, because if at least they would have beat Georgia and then lost to a Kentucky team, well, you're like, well, losing to Kentucky is not that bad, depending on how bad you lose to them. But now I think that it does kind of, if you're a Mizzou fan, I think it kind of leaves you nervous a little bit. Not that you won't make the tournament, but just kind of how far you may fall, because I think they were an 8 or 9 seed according to bracketology going into that game, and now, not so sure how far they would fall, especially with some of these teams making late pushes, like Alabama. They made a late push getting in today, so you kind of makes you sweat a little bit. But I mean, I think Mizzou will be okay. I think it gives Michael Porter more time to get in sync with his teammates. It gives them more time to practice, and for him to rest. So I don't think it's not all negative, but it would have been nice to get one more game.
I don't think you could be too upset about his performance either. I mean, he did go like 181 days, I think, without playing basketball. So the guy comes in, he was 5 for 17 shooting, which you'd wish you could see that number a little bit better. But I don't think you can be upset with Michael Porter Jr. in this case.
No, not at all. I'm not mad at him at all. Of course, I would love to see him go out there and, dominate, but I kind of knew, and I didn't think, even if Mizzou was winning by a lot, I don't think that Quanzo Martin would have let him kind of dominate. I think he would have taken him out and kind of rested him anyway. So I never expected to see a whole lot from him, but just it was good to see him back on the court regardless.
Kind of the foul bug hit Mizzou too there. We had 2 guys foul out, Kevin and Jeremiah fouled out, and we didn't have a very deep bench to begin with, and that was kind of rough.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at that from the beginning in the first half. I'm like, all of our big men, anybody who's over like 6'10", is in foul trouble. So in the second half, everyone's going to be playing kind of soft and scared, not trying to pick up their 3rd and 4th fouls. Because, I mean, they were in the bonus within the first 10 minutes of the game. It was ridiculous.
We just saw this. It just came across our phones here. Royals signed Mike Moustakas. What are your thoughts on that?
That is absolutely great. I got a notification earlier, actually, about them possibly trying to offer him to keep him. That is awesome. I love that. I love the Royals, so that's a great thing.
And I always thought from the beginning that the Royals should go after Moose rather than Hosmer, but I'm just kind of confused what the Royals are trying to do. Earlier they said that they're going into full rebuild mode. Then they signed Lucas Duda, John Jay. They get Ricky Nolasco, and now they're signing Moose. So I'm just not sure.
Yeah, the Royals, they're just kind of in that stage where, I mean, we did what we needed to do to kind of get our World Series, and now kind of some of those pieces are starting to go away. So I feel like we're just kind of trying to hang on to those pieces from the World Series team, but at the same time, not really. So I think they're just kind of in that between stage.
Start us off with rapid fire, Toby.
All right, we're going to hit you with a little bit of rapid fire, quick questions, quick responses.
Sounds good.
Defensive back last year at Missouri Western, moving to receiver this year. Last year, who's your least favorite MIAA team you played against?
My least favorite? I would probably say UCM.
Any reason for that?
Just because it was a road game. Their fans were pretty rowdy, and, I mean, their players was talking quite a bit, but, I mean, that's all good and fun, but just UCM, they kind of irked everyone the wrong way, I feel like.
Who's your favorite short athlete?
Lionel Messi, my favorite soccer player.
You could say yourself. Only 5'7" guys, if you didn't know.
Hey.
Okay, yeah, or myself, yeah.
I'm throw him under the bus like that.
They'll fit right underneath it. All right, Oklahoma State should be in the tournament.
Oklahoma State is a tournament team, yes.
Right, Oklahoma State should...
You can't just twice embarrass them once and beat them in Allen Fieldhouse. Tournament team to me.
Ooh, all right, there, little... You hear that, tournament committee? Oklahoma State should be in the tournament. If you're Florida, you get the 6th seed. Let's say you lose tomorrow, you get a 6th seed. How scared of you are Oklahoma State when they get in?
I mean, Oklahoma State, they're kind of they're a wild card a little bit. I mean, like, as we saw today, I mean, literally they blew up on Kansas Saturday, and then today they looked pretty good in the first half. In the second half, they just let Malik Newman just rip them a new one. And so, I mean, I just think that you kind of have to, if you don't play smart, if you don't play good basketball, then Oklahoma State will definitely beat you. But I think that for a team like Florida's caliber, I guess, in their case, if Florida were to play and hit their threes like they normally do, then I think they should be all right.
Right. We just had tired legs today. So you heard the news. Yeah. You heard the news about the Rams signing Aqib Talib today. Are they now? Yes. Do they now have the best defensive backfield in the NFL?
It's looking that way. I think it is looking that way. The fact that they got him and they got him for only a 5th round pick is just absolutely outrageous to me. I don't know who these GMs are, but I think that's ridiculous. The Rams are making moves, and I think that might be the best secondary now.
What's the stupidest sports opinion you've ever heard?
The stupidest sports opinion I've ever heard? Probably when Skip Bayless said that LeBron didn't deserve the Finals MVP when they beat the Golden State Warriors, even though LeBron led in every category for every player on both sides, both teams, and he said Kyrie should have won it for hitting one shot. I get it, Kyrie's a superstar, but when you lead in every single category from points, blocks, steals, rebounds, I just don't see how you don't get that. The fact that you would try to make arguments for another player is straight up blasphemous, as Stephen A. Smith would say.
All right, I got one final question. Toby here is a big defender of Rockhurst High School. Would you say that Rockhurst is the richest school in Missouri?
Did you say is Rockhurst the richest school?
Yeah, do you think Rockhurst is like the richest school in Missouri? We got to settle a debate.
No, actually. Isn't it like Pembroke Hill? Aren't they a little bit richer than Rockhurst?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
Dang.
Yeah, Rockhurst, they're up there, but no, they're not the richest.
Gannon knows. We came up off the streets at Rockhurst.
Yeah, you're not the poorest, though, right? You ain't the poorest.
Not the poorest, but you don't just look at Rockhurst and just be like, oh, they're just the richest guys ever. No, that's not how it is.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Gannon. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can have you on a few more times.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Big thanks again for coming on. Hopefully we can have him around for a little bit more sports talk in the future. Guys, let's go ahead and dig into the mailbag.
You've got mail.
Remember, you can send us your questions via email to nosebleedknowledge1@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at Nosebleed Knowledge on Facebook and at NosebleedSnow on Twitter. Let's get into the questions here. Here's the first question from Jacob from Lee Summit. Do you guys think the Kansas City Chiefs have trouble with big-time players? Thank you, Jacob. Let's go ahead and get into this one, fellas. What do you think?
I don't know if it's necessarily the Chiefs have trouble with big-time players. I'm assuming he's meaning the Marcus Peters debacle that we had. We basically got rid of him for not a whole lot at all. And I don't think it's necessarily about the Chiefs struggling with big-time players. I think it's the Chiefs as an organization who can't handle those locker room head cases. And I don't know if Peters was necessarily a head case in the locker room. Some of his antics on the field, some of the things that you heard about from him coming out of Washington, some of those, I think, really just played into the Chiefs' decision to get rid of him, send him to L.A. for next to nothing. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case, is that they have trouble with those big-time players, because I think now, hopefully, what our front office is doing is trying to sign Tremaine Johnson, get younger at the defensive back position, but still have him anchored by Eric Berry, a seasoned veteran who's going to be coming back next year. So I think as far as the Peters move, as far as the big players, Chiefs struggling with big players debate, I think that's kind of where I stand on that. I don't think it's necessarily a big players thing. I think it's a small organization who doesn't handle that limelight, that negative connotation that comes with some of the head case players.
And I think now Andy Reid has more control of the locker room since John Dorsey's gone. He's able to weed out the players that have bad attitudes, and obviously Marcus Peters was one of those. I wrote a blog about it, he's only had 4 personal foul calls in his entire life for the Chiefs. But that one time that he thought he was thrown out of the game, ran off on the team, and then came back and was wearing no socks, doesn't reflect very good on you. And I do think the Chiefs' defense is trying to get younger. They cut Derek Johnson, one of their staples at the linebacker position. And I think in this draft they'll look to draft defensive weapons, to say.
Andy Reid's coaching tree and his influence tree is so large. It spreads across the league, and it includes the GMs for the now Colts and the Browns, and even the head coach for the Eagles. All teams that could use an upgrade at cornerback, which Marcus Peters would have been. So the fact that those teams did not make a greater attempt to try to get Peters, especially since they gave him away for such little, I think it speaks to the kind of problem that he is, that the people who have been around him have seen the problems that he caused, and maybe they're like, we'll just take our luck somewhere else.
Yeah, even the people closest to Andy Reid weren't willing to help him out because they're like, this guy's such a headache. I don't want to deal with that. I'm sorry, Andy, but I can't be the guy to save you from that. You're going to have to get rid of him, cut him for basically a bag of chips and some barbecue brisket.
Hey, it's Kansas City.
Andy will love that.
Kansas City, man. We love our barbecue. Next question. Is KU's late season run a threat to the other Blue Bloods in the tournament? Boomer bust in the tourney. And is Devontae Graham the player of the year? Thank you to Tucker from Blue Springs.
So Kansas, their late season run, they won the Big 12 in dramatic style down in Texas Tech. They won their first game in the Big 12 tournament, and they're kind of on a roll late. I think, do they pose a threat to other Blue Bloods? Yes. Anytime another Blue Blood plays another one, you're in for a great game. They beat Kentucky earlier this year in that Champions Classic early in the season. They went through the Big 12, statistically the toughest conference in all of basketball. They won that handily. They beat some great teams. They have the most Quadrant 1 wins of any team. So, yes, against other Blue Blood teams, I would be nervous. Boomer bust in the tournament, it's always boomer bust with KU. KU's expected to go to Final Fours. KU's expected to compete for national championships. When you don't make it to Final Fours, which they haven't been to since I believe they went to the national championship and lost to Kentucky and that AD team, it's always boomer bust for KU. So it's, Final Four bust pretty much. And Devontae Graham for player of the year, I would have said yes after the Texas Tech game. I would have definitely said yes. I would have said he's easily like the player of the year. In the Big 12 especially, nationally you would have competed with guys like Jalen Brunson. You would have competed with guys like Marvin Bagley. Right now, if I were to cast my vote, I think I would give it to Jalen Brunson from Villanova, just because they've been the more consistent team all year. You know what you're going to get from Jalen Brunson every single game in terms of scoring, in terms of shooting the basketball. So I think Devontae Graham is certainly in the discussion. I think Jalen Brunson would have my vote as of now.
Our buddy Isaiah from Omaha sent us this question. Do you think there's a stereotype in the NFL that black quarterbacks should have to change positions when they come into the league because they might be superior athletically? Give us a couple examples like Lamar Jackson this year, Brad Smith from Missouri in 2005. Mike Vick was pressured into it. So, fellas, what do you think about that?
If you're going to look at the league, look at the owners first off. There's no minority owners, correct?
Right.
A bunch of...
My fault. Pakistani owner for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Shad Khan.
There's no black owners.
So there's no black owners in the NFL. It's 99% a bunch of old, rich white dudes who played football like in the South in the 1930s before face masks.
Run the ball, run the ball,
yeah.
Run the ball.
So they're still kind of pissed about the forward pass being allowed in the NFL. They're having a hard time adjusting to where like a position who is stereotypically for like white people, which was the quarterback position, is now available for more athletic guys who can run the ball just as well as they can pass the ball. So you can see guys like Warren Moon. He was the first one to break the barrier, right? The first kind of like big black quarterback who they pressured him to go to a wide receiver out of college. He said, no, screw that. I'm going to go play quarterback in Canada for a little bit, rack up some Grey Cups, and then I'm going to come down to the NFL and tear stuff up in Houston for the Oilers. And so you can see guys like that where you're like, all right, maybe there's a new type of quarterback coming in the league, someone who can run and gun, not just stand in the pocket and throw the ball and hand the ball off to the running backs. So when you see guys coming in like Mike Vick or Lamar Jackson, I think that kind of old way of the quarterback is no one wants to lose that, but at the same time, you got to make room for these new guys who can come in and do tremendous things with the ball in their hand.
I don't think it's black quarterbacks. I think it's the fact that they're taking these players who may seem more athletic, who can do more than with the ball in their hands. Because, like you said, Mike Vick and Lamar Jackson, but also Tim Tebow. A lot of people wanted him to move to tight end because his throwing motion was weird, but he was a big body. As you all know, Tim Tebow is ripped. And so they were like, he could be tight end. He's big. He's got decent speed. It's not the fact that they're black that they want him to change their position. I think it's because they could better utilize their talents at other positions. And many of the examples are of black athletes, but I don't think it's simply because they're black. I think if you look around the league, a lot of the white quarterbacks, they're more stay-in-the-pocket type guys. Carson Wentz, Tom Brady, Andrew Luck. Those are the types of guys that will stay in the pocket more, whereas like Teddy Bridgewater, Cam Newton, those are the guys to more likely stray out of the pocket. I mean, with the exception of like Jacoby Brissett, but he even runs more than average.
One thing to that point, too, is if you look at the guys who stay in the pocket, sling the ball downfield versus the guys who run a lot, the guys who run a lot are the ones that get injured a lot more. Like you mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater, Cam Newton. Every time they run the ball, you're risking them taking another injury versus them just sitting back and tossing it. I mean, obviously Carson Wentz got hurt pretty bad this year, but when he got hurt, what was he doing? He was running. So, I mean, every time you leave the pocket to run downfield, you're risking your knees, you're risking your ankles, something taking you out of the game. So I think that is a big concern for owners when they see a guy who wants to run more than he wants to pass.
And the quarterback that I forgot to mention, and probably the most obvious one, is RG3. He was big, fast guy. He was supposed to change how the quarterback is played again, and then he got injured.
Yeah, another injury guy.
And so, like, they've changed the quarterback position so much, so it's like it's hard for the quarterback to get injured. The athletic guys that leave the pocket, those are the guys that are more likely to get injured.
I just think it's interesting with a guy like Lamar Jackson. You know, there's good examples. Brad Smith coming out of college, he was more of a runner than a thrower when he was at Mizzou. You know, so he kind of knew, he kind of accepted his role that he was going to play receiver. Troy Smith from Ohio State, he won the Heisman, you know, as a quarterback, much like Lamar Jackson did. He didn't pan out in the NFL. He said, was drafted by the Ravens, said, I'm playing quarterback. The Ravens said, all right, well, you're not good enough to play quarterback, so you'll have to find your way somewhere else. Didn't transition to any position, dropped out of the NFL. But, you know, take it a little bit different spin on this. Lamar Jackson right now, who's been the subject of discussion for all of this, he's a very good quarterback. He's a great athlete. He's a great athlete, but he's also a great quarterback. There have been countless examples where you've seen Lamar Jackson essentially will Louisville's offense, using his arm, not just his legs, all the way down the field. He makes smart decisions. There will be times where he'll, instead of just taking off and running the ball, like Kieran said, he'll step up into the pocket. He'll continue to look downfield. He'll find open guys, which a lot of the good mobile quarterbacks are doing now. And I think, you know, from that perspective that Kieran was talking about, those big quarterbacks, those fast quarterbacks that could really, you know, get downfield, run, or athletic. You don't see a whole lot of them in the NFL, and they've been very effective, you know, when they pan out. Cam Newton, MVP. Michael Vick was very dominant at Atlanta early in his career. So I think there's no problem in giving the guys a chance. I don't know if it has to do with the color of their skin. I don't know if it's just, you know, what they see when they run the ball, if there's that's a receiver running the football out there. I don't know what it is that teams see that necessarily makes them want to change these guys' position. But in Lamar Jackson's case, I say, why not give him a shot? Why doesn't a team draft him? Why don't you see how he does?
And to that point, I agree with Toby. Why don't you give him a shot at quarterback? If a quarterback doesn't work out for him, a guy like Lamar Jackson, you can move him to wide receiver if you want. If he's not producing on the field as a quarterback, you can move him to wide receiver and see what he does there. You can also move him to safety, see what he does there. You can move him to even running back. Hell, I mean, he's got great vision. I think he could do wonders at running back too. So something like that, I'm with Toby. I say give him a shot, see what happens.
I agree. Give them a shot because these guys are obviously going to get defensive about changing their position. They've been playing quarterback, most of them, their entire football careers. And the fact that you want them to change to wide receiver over the span of months, I don't agree with it.
That just brings up to me some quarterbacks in college that were transformed from wide receiver. I mean, we talk about Eric Crouch.
He had a short stint at wide receiver for the Rams. Then he kind of bounced around. He played some safety in Europe. Did play a little bit of quarterback in Canada too. But he was drafted by the Rams as a receiver. That's what he did there before he got injured.
Yeah, Josh Cribbs was also a quarterback at Kent State. Antoine Randall,
people forget about
quarterback at Indiana. Julian Edelman, also a quarterback at Kent State. So, I mean, there's a lot of actual quarterbacks in college that end up being good wide receivers, and it's not always the worst thing for it to happen. I remember we talk about Brad Smith, but Brad Smith made pretty much a career out of being a pass-around wide receiver from team to team.
One thing that's good, I think, about moving from quarterback to receiver is you really understand what the quarterback is looking for in his receivers, so you know how to make moves downfield, you know how to read the safety, you know how to read the cornerbacks, and where to make cuts, where to not make cuts. So I think those types of guys, those types of athletes who maybe aren't performing well at quarterback, they do transition well to receiver because they have that quarterback mindset as a receiver. So I think having that type of receiver is a really great threat. Like we've seen with Antoine Randall. That guy murders it out there because he's got that quarterback mindset.
Final words?
Yeah, I got one more final words. Some of the guys I've been playing rugby with wanted me to give them a shout-out. This weekend, if you're in the Maryville area, Saturday, at 2 o'clock, we have a game against Washburn University. It's going to be at Maryville Middle School, so come out, bring a lawn chair to sit on if you're coming, but it should be a really good time. It's the first game of the season, first home game of the season for us, so we'd love to get some support out there, and if you're out there, maybe you can join us for the third half after the game also, so we'd love to see you there.
Rugby 15s, correct?
Yes, Rugby 15s.
Gotcha. Got anything?
Beat the Ichabods.
I'm Tucker Franklin for the boys, Kieran Brennan, Toby Todd, and Shane Miller. That's a wrap for episode 5 of Nosebleed Radio. Like us on Facebook at Nosebleed Knowledge. Follow us on Twitter at NosebleedsKnow. Peace.